During the resource phase, both players will draw the resource cards at the same time. Starting with the URNF player, the player will draw 16 resource cards. However, during the world event phase, the player rolled for one less resource card, so therefore will only draw 15 for this game turn. The player will then compare the mecha to the mecha cards, and then compare the military units to the military units on the cards to make sure he has them all accounted for. You can either do it by counting them and stacking the tokens, or laying the tokens directly on the images on the cards. The player will also receive 3 bases to start on the first game turn. Once the player has all their mecha and tokens, they will then look for the matching cards to the mecha and lay them out on the table as shown. This includes the 3 bases. The player will then stack all the military unit tokens in preparation to set them up on the game board. The mecha standees will be placed on their mecha cards, and the resource cards will then be picked up and put into the discard pile just below the main resource deck. The next step for the URNF player is to place his military units and mecha onto the game board. It will start with the bases. One will automatically go to Honolulu in the center. One will go along anywhere on the east coast, and the other along the west coast of the Pacific Ocean. In this case, you picked Hong Kong, Honolulu, and Mexico City. Next, the player will place Army and Marine units along any of the land, coastal, and city zones. There must be a minimum of 8 land, city, and coastal zones occupied by bases, Army, and Marine units. All the other units can be placed anywhere along a land, coastal, city, or even a sea zone for Navy units. The tokens being placed right now are the transport units. Those should be placed with an Army unit because they're the ones that are most likely going to be transporting Army across sea zones. Next, the mecha are placed in a zone with a base. There can be as many as 6 mecha placed in that zone with the base. And in this example, 1 was placed in Hong Kong, 1 at Honolulu, and 2 at Mexico City. Lastly, the player will place the control tokens, 1 in each land, city, and coastal zone on the map board. This indicates all the zones that the human forces, the URNF, control at the beginning of the game, before this is our invasion. Now just showing you a close-up of the layout of all the units and mecha on the board prior to going into the movement phase. In subsequent game turns, the URNF player will have to place his forces at any URNF base on the board before moving them to any land, sea, or coastal or city zones. And for ease of the players, it is best to place your mecha and kaiju cards in order to where they are on the game board. In this example, the player is arranging the cards so that the bases and mecha are on the same side as their tokens are on the game board. Next, they will, if there are multiples of the same type on the board, in this case there was 3 bases, then they will be numbered. 1 token will be placed on the card, 1 will be placed underneath the respective base. As there are two mecha of the same type, in this case the Urban Scout, the flying unit, then a player will place one on one area, as shown on the left side, and a number 2 on the right-hand side. You do not need to place the yellow numbered tokens underneath any mecha or kaiju standees, as they have their own numbering system in gray text on them. Depending on how many are being used, they are numbered from 1 to 4. While the URNF player is setting up his forces for the resource phase, the Caesaran player will also be getting her forces. She will be drawing 4 resource cards for every target city in play. There was 2 target cities, therefore 8 cards will be drawn. As with the URNF player, she will then compare the kaiju with the kaiju cards, matching standees to the cards, and doing the same thing with the military unit tokens. Once all the tokens are placed, the player will also draw 2 portals, 1 for each target city, and place them underneath each of those cards. One difference between the URNF and the Caesaran player, especially if it's just 2 players, is that the other side of the tokens has dashed markers. That one side is for the URNF player, as you can see on the game board, just a plain border. And the dash borders is for the Caesaran player if a 2-player game. Or if multiple players, then 3rd and 4th players would place with the dash side. The Caesaran player will then stack the tokens and start setting them up for which target city and portal they will be deploying through. They will also match the kaiju cards with the standee tokens. If you want to get extra command points instead of taking a kaiju, because you might have too many kaiju or you need the command points, then as the card will show on the mecha or even the units, that you can exchange that for so many command points as listed on the card. In that example, they could exchange the Iron Sides for 6 command points if they decide to do so. If not, they keep the Iron Sides and it goes into play with the rest of them. The cards are then gathered up and placed into the discard pile below or underneath the Caesaran resource deck. The player will then match the units and kaiju to whatever target city and therefore portal that they want them to deploy through during the movement phase. As the rules will state, there must be a minimum of 1 military unit going through each portal, and there can be either 0 or up to 6 kaiju going through a portal. Now the forces will be ready for the movement phase. During the 3rd step of the resource phase, the players will each collect command points for their forces. The Caesaran player can collect command points based on how many portals in play, 5 points for each portal, and any bases and kaiju that are in play that game turn. In this case, there are 4 kaiju. Looking at the command values, which is the yellow icon, they will total all that up for a total of 14 command points and adjust it accordingly on the command point tracker. For the URNF player, the same thing, looking at all the bases and mecha in play, looking at the yellow star icon as the command value, totaling that up to adjust on the command point tracker. Players can save up command points from previous game turns, however they can never have more than 30 command points in a game turn. Any excess can be used to purchase nukes or repair mecha or bases.